Today, we are going to talk about a crucial topic, which is retirement.
When you think about retirement, for a lot of people, that's not a very happy picture. One, it's so far into the future that, a lot of behavioral economists will tell you today that, the human mind just cannot think so far into the future. Surveying people ranked retirement as sort of the 8th priority. Whether they are sports, whether they are pets, whether it's fitness, whether it's anything else.
Correct.
And sort of work on it to see whether you can create a second skill from which you can, make some money. It is very important for you to frame your goal of retirement as a happy one.
Hi everyone, I'm Anup Gulati, Head of Marketing at PGIM India Mutual Funds. Welcome to the episode of Money Buddy, brought to you by Money and Me, an investor education initiative by PGIM India Mutual Funds. Today, we are going to talk about a crucial topic, which is retirement. To talk on retirement, we have with us Ajit Menon, CEO of PGIM India Mutual Funds. Welcome, Ajit.
Thank you, Anup. I'm happy to be here again.
Superb. So, Ajit, my first question to you is, why is retirement planning so tough for people?
When people invest money, they invest largely for happy goals.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, right, when people sort of think about what do they want to do with their money, they're like, okay, its first thing is that, children's education, children's marriage, buying a house, buying a car, going on a holiday, and things like that. Now, if you think about all of these goals that people end up prioritizing much more, these are all happy goals.
Correct.
Now, when you think about retirement, for a lot of people, that's not a very happy picture. One, it's so far into the future that, a lot of behavioral economists will tell you today that, the human mind just cannot think so far into the future and sort of predict and think about what to do. Yeah. And there are too many moving variables as to what your health is going to be, how long you're going to live, how long your spouse is going to live, things like that. So it becomes a little complex. It's also not a very happy subject for a lot of people, and therefore it gets deprioritized while planning, even though it's probably, according to me, the most important goal to plan for.
So Ajit, yes, we do understand that retirement planning is a goal which is very far off. So that's why people do not tend to plan too early for it.
Yeah.
But what do you think is the right age or the time period when people should start planning for retirement?
Again, I would probably take a little bit of an unconventional approach there. The conventional approach is start as early as you can.
Yeah.
And I think that it's pretty sound advice to start as early as you can, for the simple reason that money compounds over time, and you get the benefit of that compounding of your wealth if you have invested sufficiently a longer period of time.
Correct.
But we're human beings. We tend to have so many aspirations and needs and lifestyle requirements that we tend to put it off a little bit. And a lot of people might find themselves on the other side of 40 or closer to 50s or into their 50s, and they feel a little anxious about, what can be done. And I think that there is really no time, for planning for retirement. You should start if you feel that's important today, whatever age group that you might be in. I think in the same vein, I would say that if you have deprioritized this goal, you haven't thought about it or probably allocated your assets in a way for retirement, you should just do it right now. But I do feel that to make it a little bit more, to the seriousness of the subject, you do need a 10-year, 15-year sort of time period to create a corpus.
Yeah.
However, I wouldn't say that the requirement of that corpus is such that you stop doing everything in life, right, at the end of it, whatever that might be, which you think you want to retire at 35 or 45 or 55 or whatever it might be. I think that your plan for retirement should, while you're building your corpus, should also be what are the things that you can monetize in your life as skills.
Okay.
Most people have a primary skill, which is their job. If you're a doctor, you're a doctor. Chartered accountant. If you're a salaried person in technology or businesses or marketing, that's your primary skill. But I would say that a more better way is to think about do you have a secondary skill?
Okay.
And if you don't, I'm sure that you can start working on it, because there'll be many things in your, while you were in school or college and things like that, which you are passionate about, whether they are sports, whether they are pets, whether it's fitness, whether it's anything else.
Correct.
And sort of work on it to see whether you can create a second skill from which you can, make some money. And the beauty of it is that you don't need to make like a couple of lakh of rupees by doing that. So I would tell people, to the question, when is the right time to start for retirement? Well, the best time was as early as you could have.
Correct.
But if most people feel that they haven't done that, start
Today.
now.
Yeah.
But when you start now, have a strategy to think about what could be a second skill that you can build, out of which a hobby, a passion, which you can continue working forever, so to speak, from which you can earn some money.
So you've talked about creating a second skill, developing a secondary skill. But is there some guideline to it? How does somebody go about it? Because these skills can be innumerable. They can be like too many.
Yeah, there are many of those. And let me say that, this is not easy. I mean, it sounds nice to say that, you have a secondary skill and you monetize it and you do it. And a lot of people have done it. I'm sure during COVID, you would have known a family and friends who got into baking or cooking, and, and suddenly you found all of these great chefs come out of the woodwork,
talent was coming out.
And talent was coming out, right? So I think that I'm talking something similar in those veins. And I think that when you look around you, you'll find people who are actually doing some of these secondary skills. You have people who have, retired from the army and they are fitness trainers. You have women who may have taken a break and they love pets, and they have pet boarding at home. There are people who know multiple languages and they can act as translators, or they can translate content for people. They can do voiceovers, they can do that. They can be yoga teachers. You could just go to a college or a school and teach, or take tuitions at home for subjects or for entrance exams and things like that. And people who have skills monetize that. Now, people who are reasonably well planned in their life, they have a good retirement income, I would think that they also should be thinking of it, because something that we don't talk about too much when we talk about retirement planning is the human aspect of your health and your well-being into retirement. The conventional thought is, I'm going to stop at 58 or 60 or 62 and then I've got to have this corpus because I'm not going to have a job, and then it's got to last me 25 or 35 years or whatever that is, right? And that's how people think conventionally. Once upon a time that was true, but I think now a lot more people, especially the younger generation, don't feel like that. They feel they can work forever, but it's about staying healthy while you're doing it. So even if you had the corpus, I would say volunteer. If you had to work with an NGO, give your time, so that you're active, you're purposeful, your mind's occupied, right?
So Ajit, I do understand that now with your inputs, that retirement planning is one on the financial side. So you are taking care of the corpus. The second is, because you are developing a secondary skill, it helps you to be cognitively very active. So you don't tend to have a deterioration of health over a period of time because you're busy doing something.
That's right.
So are there any other challenges for investors to be aware about, apart from the secondary skills, the monetary part? How is it that somebody can involve more on the society front, the way you said, for example, on the NGO side,
right?
So people can voluntarily do some service. So anything?
Well, I think that Anup, it's part of what we talked about. While our report talks about 50 different hobbies that people have monetized, and as I mentioned earlier, I think people also need to be socially connected as much. So when we're talking about health and well-being, mental well-being, physical well-being into retirement, there's enough research that also says that being part of a community, being socially in larger groups of people tends to reduce the anxiousness related to money and the other challenges that you might have. In fact, our research even suggests that people who come from joint families are actually less financially anxious than people who come from nuclear families. And I think commonsensically we can think about it, that in joint families, people think that somebody's got my back. Right? Nuclear families, you're really alone and you're dealing with the challenges.
And the world is gravitating to more towards nuclear families nowadays.
That's true. And I do, however, think that the answer to that question that you have is to realize that there is a lot to retirement beyond the numbers, and it is very important for you to frame your goal of retirement as a happy one. So when you first start there to say, I know I have to retire. At some point, retirement means I'm going to stop my primary job, but I'm going to continue doing something or the other. I'm going to stay active. And I'm going to do something fun, something I enjoy, something I can continue for longer. Picture that in terms of, what makes you happy. And therefore, framing your goal, just like your children's marriage and your house and your car, framing retirement as something happy and what that means for you is, I think, the first step. Once you do that, you don't think of retirement as retirement. You think of retirement as financial freedom.
Oh, yes.
Right? And financial freedom is what everybody would like to have, whether you're even 30 or you're 60. It doesn't matter.
Correct.
So then you start taking what we said, as steps. Either you do the conventional thing, of course, as an approach. The earlier you start, the better. You get benefits of compounding. You have a diversified portfolio, and you put that aside.
Superb. So, Ajit, I've got a couple of personal questions.
Sure.
Are you retirement ready? So, for that matter, are you gravitating towards your financial freedom?
Yes, I am. As I mentioned in an earlier episode, I use a financial advisor myself for the last more than 15 years now. And of course, retirement was one of the financial goals that we planned for. I wanted to be a little more aggressive about it. And I said, listen, I'm going to hang up my boots at 55. That means that leaves me just 2 years more of work. But I'm going to keep working, of course. But according to my financial plan review that I did recently, I'm retirement ready. So
Superb.
I think I've got to my target a year or two earlier. But I'm going to follow the same principle that I'm telling you, which is that, I'm going to have a bunch of things that I'm going to keep busy with and even think about how to keep earning money in things that I can use my time.
So that was going to be my second question. What's the secondary skill that you're developing? Or you already have?
I have... right through school and college, I've been more on the artistic side of things, using my voice in some way, using my, I sketch portraits quite a lot, so using that in some way. But my wife is a coach, so I'm going to be a student of my wife, hopefully soon, so that I can get certified to be a coach for executives. So that's a good one to have. I have a long list of stuff that I intend to do.
So thank you, Ajit. I think you have given some quite interesting insights on how is it that somebody can be ready for retirement planning, or as you rightly put, financial freedom, getting ready for your financial freedom. So thank you for joining in and for your inputs. On that note, thank you for joining us for this episode of Money Buddy. Thank you.
Money Buddy Podcast, brought to you by Money and Me, an investor and education awareness initiative by PGIM India Mutual Fund.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.